Oh, Rusty, why'd you go and do that for? The closing moments of Presumed Innocent Episode 4 really flipped the case onto its head, and it went from there being nothing against Rusty to it showing that he not only has a violent side to him, but also evidence that was against him underneath Carolyn Polimas' fingernails. With an episode that was definitely slower than the first three and had less revelations and talking points within it, let's jump into the episode and break down all that there was to take away from it. Here is Presumed Innocent Episode 4 Ending Explained. Just to let you know, this video will contain spoilers. The final scene. Although this episode was quite a slow one, the closing scene felt like the crescendo that the slow-paced, elongated, built-up episode needed. There were a lot of different things going on. There was chaos, and it truly allowed us to understand the stress that was going on within Rusty's mind as he got the news that there was now evidence that was against him, and it could have been getting made up to make him look like he was the murderer. Plus, there was also Brian Ratzer banging at his door and being a threat to his family. The scene was slowly erupting and building up, and you could see that he was on the cusp of lashing out. What went from a relaxed, quiet scene around the pool talking to Barbara transformed into a chaotic one in the flip of a coin, where he's now most likely going to have more charges against him for assault. But what's more damaging is the fact that it's going to show the jury and the prosecutors that he has a violent side within him and the capability of lashing out. Rusty was adamant that he didn't have a scratch on him, so he was confused as to why his DNA was found underneath Carolyn's fingernails. Tommy is definitely a suspicious person, and I am actually questioning if he was the person that Carolyn was afraid of at work. When Tommy interviewed Michael, he said that his mother said that she was afraid of somebody at work, but she never revealed who. I don't think it would be Rusty. I reckon there could have been something else going on there, and maybe it was Tommy that she was afraid of. And that could be why Tommy wants to pin the murder on Rusty so bad. It's just one theory for now, but you never know. With Brian Ratzer being at Rusty's house at the end, he was obviously suspicious over the reason why Rusty and Rigo were at his house, and he was fearful of what was going to be happening to him following the Bunny Davis case being brought back up. Brian was the other person whose sample was found at the crime scene of Bunny Davis, but it was never properly delved into. Carolyn chose to not take it any further for some reason. A reason I imagine we will eventually find out. Brian said that he recognized Rusty, and one would assume from the trial of Liam Reynolds as he searched him up and found him on the internet quite easily afterwards. I don't think that Brian had anything to do with Carolyn's murder. If you watched my last video, I was quite adamant that it could have been Barbara, and I still stand by that. There wasn't as many clues in this episode, but there was one standout moment for me, which was when she was speaking with her therapist. The therapist said that one day the forgiveness that she has within her for Rusty could transform into rage and anger, and then once she said that, Barbara's face changed. She was also fidgeting quite a lot during that discussion too. What if that rage and anger has already occurred and it was let out onto Carolyn with her murder? I think that could be the case. Analyzing Rusty Savage. The more I'm learning about Rusty, the more of an interesting character he's becoming. Do I think he killed Carolyn? No, I don't. I just think the show's trying to make us believe that he did. Although he himself did actually have a nightmare of attacking Carolyn on the night that she was killed. As well as that, when he was acting out what it would be like if he were to take the stand, he was crumbling, and we started to see a different side to him. A side that almost resented Carolyn for the way that he felt he was being treated by her. He couldn't remember what happened on the night that he went to hers, which was the night that she was murdered, because he'd consumed a lot of drink before he arrived there as she wasn't replying to his messages. Either that, or he wasn't being totally truthful with Maya. We saw different scenarios playing out as he walked through the door. One where they embraced, one where they were intimate, and another which was filled with an argument. So it's hard to truly know which one did happen, and although he was intoxicated, I think he can remember. But he's choosing not to say because he's worried that it'll be used against him. Rusty has lied a lot throughout the case, and it's only been through revelations of evidence being found that he's had to spill out the truth. So unless there's evidence of what occurred inside there, I don't think he'd willingly reveal it. Judging by the text messages that he was sending, saying things like, "Is there someone there with you?" and reiterating the fact that he wanted to make things work between them, it showed that he was a paranoid and an obsessed individual. He was angry before, so there's nothing to say that things didn't erupt when he got there, like he said, but it doesn't necessarily mean violence. The fact that he referred to her as cruel is something which shows that he felt as though he was being played by Carolyn with the goodbye kiss that they shared, and that he felt as though she knew what she was doing and giving him just enough hope that he'd think there was still a chance. He felt as though she knew what she was doing and keeping him close enough for what she wanted. From an outsider's perspective, we saw Raymond's view of Rusty in this episode, and even though they were dear friends, he shared the difference between guilt and shame and how Rusty only felt one of them. He felt as though Rusty felt shame over what happened with him cheating on Barbara, something which is self-centered and impacts one's ego, whereas he didn't feel as though Rusty felt guilty about it. And Raymond felt like guilt was about owning the pain that one person's act can cause to others, showing that Rusty is a self-centered, selfish individual, and I would agree with that. He's caused his family a lot of pain with what he's done, but he doesn't seem to truly address it, even passing it over to Barbara and saying that she would need to take responsibility for some of it, when in reality, she wasn't to blame for the affair. My review of the episode. I think this was the worst episode in the season so far, but I don't think it was a bad one. Last week was all about us delving into the minds of the characters, especially Rusty and Barbara, but this one felt like it was more about just progressing the case forward and getting it to a point where it was ready for trial. The cracks are showing within the Savage family, whether that be with Kyle and him following Rusty but not being responsible for the murder, Barbara wanting to cheat on Rusty, and Rusty lashing out. It even seems like their daughter is going to be scarred by the actions of Brian Ratzer in the closing moments of the episode, so the family is quite literally at a breaking point. There were a lot of shots in this episode of the skyscrapers, and it was done from the ground rather than from the sky, and I felt like that was done for a particular reason. I felt as though this frequented throughout the episode because it wanted to give the illusion of being trapped. Normally when we see a shot of the city, it's from the sky, and it shows how vast and large it is. Whereas this was the opposite. It gave a sense of claustrophobia, looking up, and it looked like there was quite literally no way out of there. At least, that's how I interpreted it. I do think that this show is shot really nicely. Scenes such as the slow zoom into Kyle when he's in therapy, where it's giving the idea of trying to get information out of his mind, and also the handheld movements blended with the static ones. It's a real experience when watching this show, and the grading which gives it that dark, ominous look is really complimentary too. I'm hoping we're going to see the trial start soon, because I think that's where the show is going to be at its best. We've actually only got 3 episodes left to go until it finishes, and it feels like there's a lot that still needs to be answered, so I'm hoping that the final 3 episodes won't feel rushed. So, there you have it, Presumed Innocent Episode 4 Ending Explained. If you want to see more videos on Presumed Innocent, then click on the card in the top corner. There's a playlist there with all of the episodes broken down, or alternatively you can head over to my channel where you'll find them all. And finally, if you'd like to see what I rate the latest movies that don't quite make the cut to getting a dedicated video, then head over to my Letterboxd profile. It's where I rate the latest releases in real time. What did you think of this episode? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. As always, thanks for tuning into the video, and I'll see you in the next one.